This is the first in a series of 3 programs titled Nicolas Slonimsky Eats Dinner, during which we will listen to an event taped at the home of Mrs. George Antheil in Los Angeles, California, on December 28, 1970. Mr. Slonimsky, the eminent musicologist, composer, and conductor, was invited to sup with Mrs. Antheil, myself, and my wife, Charles Amirkhanian. And during this 5-hour marathon of discussions, mainly emanating from Mr. Slonimsky himself, we traversed the course of 20th century music history in a rather short amount of time. Slonimsky has been acquainted with nearly all of the major figures of 20th century composing and has very lively anecdotes to tell about a good deal of them in these 5 hours. He was born in St. Petersburg, Russia, April 27, 1894, where he studied piano and composing at the Conservatory of Music. Leaving Russia in 1920, he went to Europe, finally settled in the United States about 1923. He was made a United States citizen in 1931. Slonimsky was a professor of music at the Eastman School of Music in 23 to 25, personal secretary to Serge Koussevitzky, conductor of the Boston Symphony from 1925 to 27, and conductor of his own Boston Chamber Orchestra from 1927 to 34, during which time he performed works of Varese, Ives, Cowell, Riegger, Chavez, and other madmen of the period. It was this orchestra, the Boston Chamber Orchestra, financed by an unknown composer named Charles Ives, with which Slonimsky toured Paris, Berlin, Prague, Budapest, Havana, and other cities, always performing entire evenings of new music. Edgar Varese dedicated his ionization to Slonimsky, who premiered it and then recorded it for Columbia Records on 78s. This performance is soon to be released on the Los Angeles label Orion Records, which recently documented and issued the first record of music by Slonimsky the composer. The original cast recording of ionization includes many now celebrated composers, including William Schumann playing a percussion instrument called the lion's roar. Slonimsky's uncompromising attitude toward programming his orchestral concerts soon resulted in his being blackballed by the music establishment. Unable to land further conducting engagements, he turned to the field of musicology, which suited him very well, as he'd been personally acquainted with nearly all of the major figures of this century. In his book Music Since 1900, published in 1937, with a second revised edition to be issued late in 1971, he documented in chronological order the most significant and revolutionary events of music history of each day since the turn of the century. In Thesaurus of Scales and Musical Patterns, which he wrote in 1947, he exhaustively surveyed more than 2,000 melodic and harmonic progressions for composers in search of new materials. And then in 1953, Slonimsky published his Lexicon of Musical Invective, a collection of negative commentary leveled at composers by music critics from the time of Beethoven to that of the present. This delightful book is now available in paperback from the University of Washington Press and features assaults arranged by composer, plus an invecticon, which cross-references at the back of the book all vituperative, pejorative, and deprecatory words and phrases. For instance, there's a listing for Amoeba Weeps, Webern, page 250, Bomb in Poultry Yard, Schönberg, page 157, Communist, Wagner, page 226, Degenerate, Scriabin, 173, Strauss, 190, Stravinsky, 203. But Slonimsky's greatest contribution must be as editor of Baker's Biographical Dictionary of Music and Musicians, an enormous atlas of the most thorough musicological scholarship. As a detective, Slonimsky is ruthless. He has an enormous collection of birth certificates of nearly all the composers of this century, and many of them from the 18th and 19th centuries as well. He's in touch with all of the vital statistic bureaus in all of the capitals of the world, and even recently found out that the date of death of Richard Maxfield, a well-known avant-garde composer, whose biography will appear in the forthcoming Baker's Dictionary supplement, slated to be issued late in 1971. A glance through Baker's Dictionary reveals Slonimsky as a magician with words, transforming the most mundane academic trivia into white rabbit sentences which assault one's mental processes with ferocity. His forthcoming description of pianist and composer David Tudor reads in part, "He instinctively inclined towards modern experimentation and developed a hypermodern virtuoso technique as a quaquaversal polydactyl pianist." Such language has been the source of much controversy for Slonimsky, for he was recently relieved of his post as program annotator for the Los Angeles Philharmonic Orchestra when the orchestra's management complained that Slonimsky's English was too arcane for Americans. Slonimsky is witty, charming, enormously talented, and inordinately lively. In person, he pulls no punches and will reveal, frankly, extraordinary stories about the most sacrosanct figures in music. Undoubtedly, if we ever see his memoirs, they will rank among the most interesting and racy of music history. I'd like to remind KPFA listeners that Mr. Slonimsky will give a public lecture concert for KPFA Radio at the Berkeley Piano Club on August 18th at 8:30 p.m. Now, the Berkeley Piano Club is located at 2724 Haste Street, near the corner of Haste and College. That's in another 2 weeks, on Wednesday night, August 18th, Nicolas Slonimsky at the Berkeley Piano Club. Let's turn now to the first of 3 programs devoted to this dinner, which occurred on December 28, 1970, in Los Angeles. We began taping the moment that Slonimsky rang the doorbell. He walked into the room, looked at the tape recorder, and began to talk for the next 4 hours and 45 minutes, never once mentioning the fact that I was changing reels and adjusting levels throughout the evening. And I think, indeed, he treated it as a performance, and I'm going to do the same. Rather than producing this program with music and lively little things like that, we're going to just play the tape as a documentation of a piece of conceptual art. So what you're going to hear is the first reel of our 5-reeler, Dinner with Nicolas Slonimsky.
Well, you made it.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Oh, he's younger than I thought. Hi, how are you?
Well,
Young chicken.
young generation.
Hi.
Hello.
Nice to know you.
We thought we'd have an old man walk in here, but too bad, we're disappointed.
A nice
No,
shop.
I can still walk, in fact, run. And I can still be excited about people like you. So it's a very interesting experience, you know, doing those dictionaries. You see, there's a human element that is fantastic because
It's unpredictable.
You see people either pouring information on you which you don't want, or
Too
writing
much.
me, particularly the older ones, that they were the first to, I don't know, to use the Holton scale, which was used by Glinka in 1886, and so forth. You see, either that kind, or absolutely refusing to give any information and saying the only thing that is important is my music and never mind. There is an absolutely insane person in England, that a sort of genius, Kaikhosru Sorabji.
Yes, I've heard about him, but what do you know about him?
I know everything about him.
You
I
do?
know too much about him.
You do? Well, I'd like to find out about him. Nobody can...
First of all, he maintains a castle near London. He's a Hindu. And his mother was a very remarkable. Right? And his mother, there was such a relationship that his mother was so devoted to him that she personally went to go to London to invite some adolescent boys for Kaikhosru Sorabji to entertain. That's how devoted she was to him.
How did they set themselves up in a castle, so
Well,
to speak?
because
or
he is
financial-
extremely rich from India.
Oh, I
you
see. He came over.
Okay, no, he didn't come over. You see, the trouble was I'm in a terrible situation with him because he cursed me for finding out what his real identity is. And when I told, I want.
Nobody knows.
I know everything. I know.
Did you print it? Did you print
Well,
it?
I sent it to Percy Scholes, who edited the Oxford Companion to Music. And Percy Scholes printed it. And so Kaikhosru Sorabji wrote a letter to Percy Scholes, which he sent to me, and which I don't know whether I have a right to print, but not since Samuel Johnson wrote his famous letter to Lord Chesterfield has there been anything like that in the English language, signed your obedient servant. See, the beginning was this. Dear sir, recent elucubration of yours has recently been called to my attention. While it is my rule to ignore the persons of your kidney. You don't have many English, you don't. Kidney, persons of your kidney. The only reason I to this, and it has been, and while it has been always my pleasure to mislead lexicographers and others of your ilk, you know. You see, I must protest against your clapping several years to my age and being preoccupied with the price of my compositions instead of their contents. Although I doubt very much whether you could understand anything in my music and possess. And so he said it to me, I am,
He still
dear
doesn't.
sir, your obedient servant, and so forth. Well, what I did, I got his birth certificate because I became terribly interested. Whereupon I found out that his name was not Kaikhosru at all, but Dudley, which is just about the worst thing in the world. So I wrote about it to Eric Blom, who edited the Gross Dictionary of Musicians. So Eric Blom wrote me and he said, I would not advise you to publish this fact. I've known that he was Dudley for a long time, but if you at all value your life, he will take the transatlantic plane, arrive in Boston and murder you. See, because
When did you find this out now?
Well, I found this out about 15 years ago, and so I was.
Who was Dudley? I
Well,
didn't come in for
Kaikhosru Sorabji. He was
British.
baptized Dudley, but you see, I did get all of his wax from him. I mean, first when I wrote him, he said, "Dear sir, I have no time to be preoccupied with people who are interested in my music. You may consult my works in one of your American libraries." Whereupon I wrote back to him and said, "Unfortunately, this is a backward country, former colony that has no culture, and I regret to say, I mean, words to that effect, that the libraries are not even aware of the importance of your works, they simply do not have it. They don't have them, and therefore I should like to be acquainted, because I heard a great deal about it and so forth." And lo and behold, I got not only his scores, particularly Opus Clavicembalisticum, 250 pages, beautiful paper. It's a piano sonata with Passacaglia with 86 variations and stuff like that, and written on 4 stages. Nobody can play it except some kind of a pianist with 20 fingers. It was all those ragas and things, in a sort of a Busoni-like stuff, and it's dedicated in praise of those few who are blessed with the understanding of my music, and in condemnation and desecration of those many who, it's all big letters, and everything, and it costs, then it costs, I don't know, 20 pounds, and I suppose I don't know what it
20
costs
pounds?
now. Yes, I don't know what it costs now. I mean, it's all out of printed. Then he sent me a few other things, and then I said, well, my God, I mean, this man is a genius. I don't care what names he calls me, but he's a genius. And then he wrote, when I said that I was very much interested, because he seems to be the only composer from India who writes this kind of stuff. So he wrote, dear sir, do not dare to call me an Indian. I am a Parsi. The sea. And his religion is the religion of Zoroaster and the worship of
like
fire.
Mehta.
Well, Mehta is all right. He can amuse himself with this, but I mean, but this guy was serious. And so then, of course, after we found out apparently Scholes referred to me about what happened, that Scholes said that he was born in 1895, and he claimed that this was too old for him. So I got his birth certificate, and I found that he was born in 1891. So it went the other way around. And so I sent it to Scholes, but I never expected him to give me credit for this thing, because you see, Blom warned me in his unique style not to do that, because it would be.
Now, have you published, let's see, is there anything in your books on Sorabji?
Yeah, so.
Which ones?
Music since 1900. And my
Performance dates?
dictionary or everything.
Okay.
Oh yes, well, he's crazy. I don't know what will happen, and he doesn't receive anybody except that there's a sign over the gates of his castle, or whatever it is. You know, it isn't much of a castle, but still something. You know, an old English place. There is a sign: visitors unwelcome. Roman Catholic nuns in full habit may call without an appointment.
Oh.
Did you put that in too?
No, I can't put that in because I didn't see. It was told me by a person, by an English composer who knew him. Now, this was, and I cannot publish his letter to Scholes because it seems that I can have the letter, but I have no right to publish it. You see, I may even have the original, but there are all kinds of laws, and a guy like that can raise a terrific stink. Not that he can collect anything or can prevent publication, but he can raise a stink.
Yeah, but just because you have a letter from somebody doesn't mean that you can publish it.
No, as a matter of fact, I'm publishing all my the letters I received from Charles Ives, and Mrs. Cowell told me that I should ask the husband of Ives' adopted daughter, Edith, and she's dead, Edith. And so I said, it's ridiculous. They are letters addressed to me, Charles Ives, and he will never raise any questions. And so I'm publishing an entire correspondence from Charles Ives, written in his seismic hand, you know, and because he couldn't write at all, you know, for the last 30 years of his life. And I understand that those are the only letters from Ives ever wrote in longhand, except business letters. Also, I have about 40 of them, and I published through the years, and I published those that were at all publishable. I omitted those letters in which he denounces every conductor and every musician in the country except me, Eugene Goossens and Carl Ruggles and Henry Cowell and John Becker. I can't publish as the thing like that, you know. Toscanini was a sissy and everybody in the it reminded me of a letter of Schönberg. Schönberg wrote still can't be published, wrote to a friend in Vienna, and I saw that letter in which he has a whole table of good guys, bad guys. Bad guys are Arturo Toscanini, Otto Klemperer, Bruno Walter, Wilhelm Furtwängler. Quite a now good guys are only two. They are Eugene Goossens and Nicolas Slonimsky. So I don't know. I mean, that's against that list. And Kusevitsky, of course, bad guy.
Oh no.
Why? What he says about conductors and everybody, the Ramuses, people who don't know anything about music at all. And so, because, well, of course, all those people are dead now. I mean, the bad guys are dead. The one good guy is dead. I'm the only. Goossens is dead. I'm the only.
When did Goossens die?
Goossens died in 1964. He was a good guy. When he got in trouble the last year of his life in Australia, imagine. It just had to happen.
But what kind of trouble? I remember something vaguely.
He returned to Australia, where he was conductor of the Sydney Symphony Orchestra and director of the Conservatorium, as they call it, in Sydney. So what does he do? He goes to Paris and he buys a lot of things that now you can buy in the free press store at any time.
I see.
And he imports all those stills and some films that now a UCLA student wouldn't even bother to see. So
They make
what?
their own now.
Yes, I know. I don't know anything. But anyway, it is so. You just imagine how naive that was 15 years ago. So someone squealed on him, and his baggage was searched, and they produced all those nudes and whatever they were, and maybe some film, and yes, I mean something that you could see in the sweetest sexual practices in Sweden. You see, I mean everything. Nothing like that, and so instantly he was dismissed from both his jobs.
For that? That's nothing. Oh, I
That's what you say.
Well,
but 15 years ago
it's
in
nothing
Australia,
now. But
it
even
was
10 years ago it would have been just...
all I can say now that in my experience at UCLA, if anything like that, I mean, pot and everything, it had been possible in any university, then probably the university would have been closed down, and it would have, and my TA staged a show 5 years ago at UCLA, which contained such materials, I mean, the nude girl crucified and sort of, supported, and it's fantastic thing. A guy on a motorcycle, idling the motor in front of the footlights, and
This is a live performance?
Live performance, and a helmet, leather jacket, boots, nothing between the leather jacket and the boots, right in front. That's one thing. Then a piece called playing music. So a guy comes down and proceeds to play Rachmaninoff's C-sharp minor prelude. Nobody understands anything because I mean, what's going on anyway. But then several bicycles appear. The cyclists are girls with stocking over their heads, completely new. Now, this is nothing now.
When was that? What
This is
year?
5 years.
5 years
What did
ago.
anything
Yeah.
happen then?
Well, you see, and there was also, he wrote a very funny piece of music called Defense Music to Protect the North American Continent Against the Invasion of Viet Cong Forces, which was with a diagram showing how the Viet Cong first occupied Hawaii and then land in California, occupied the campus of
What's his
UCLA.
name? That man.
Joe Byrd.
Joe Byrd. Oh yeah.
Oh, you know Joe Byrd?
Sure, he's a legend up in.
Where?
We all hear about him in Northern California.
Well, he's a legend, but you see, well, he was given to me as my teaching assistant, and so the chairman of the department said, Nicholas, we don't have any teaching assistants. Would you take Joe Byrd? So I jumped on Joe Byrd, and so I said, so he said, he's all right, believe it or not, but he knows music. So I said, well, I don't know. And then I said to myself, I always had something of an adventure in me. So I said, all right, I'll chance it. So he belongs to the Albanian wing of the Communist Party, anti-Soviet.
It couldn't be more less.
Yes, I did. And having some kind of intramural feud with Mao, because he was not sure that Mao, but the Albanians. And when I went to his, he had a little stand during the election, and so I looked at it, and there were pictures of some strange bearded, that was before the beard became very common, bearded individuals I knew nothing about. So I said, who are these? So I said, don't you know, this is Hoxha. So the Hoxha, that's Albanian. I said, well, anyway, so this is the kind of communist he was. I mean, nothing common, just like variety
more
of Soviet
common.
communism. This, no Angela Davis stuff, none of this. It's really real.
Not
thing.
exotic enough.
What?
Not exotic enough.
Yes, I know. So
Then he has this, much later,
Well, and
it's
then-
ironic that he has that rock group called United States of America.
yes, but you know
And then-
why? Because it's absolutely an inversion,
United States of America.
Well, no, I mean an inversion. Why he calls it United States of America and this
Absolute opposite of the...
absolute opposite, and it's a denunciation of the idea, just like this defense music to protect the North American.
diagram of how to invade.
It's
actually.
yes, the diagram of the invasion, which was really the funniest thing.
That's what they published in Source, I think, because I saw that piece
No.
somewhere. No? I heard about that piece somehow.
No, well, they published it in that program. And then he came to my office and he said, Nicholas, I'm going to perform a black mass, and I need 4 virgins to be deflowered at the climax. So, said, may I speak to your secretaries or to your students? So I was so overwhelmed. I said, all I could say is rocks of rock.
Who was very romantically minded, told me once that she met her daughter, Ariadne's daughter,
I
in
didn't know she
Israel.
had a daughter.
Yeah, they had 2 children, the Lazaruses.
Oh,
We
I
knew
don't
them.
know anything about Daniel Lesser. Where
now
is
this
he?
goes back to Goldschman.
Yes, where is
Because
he?
he said Lazarus was a great friend of Vladimir Goldschman.
Incidentally, where is Goldschman? What is he doing now? He's no longer conducting the Denver Symphony.
He just retired
Yeah.
this spring, was his last season with Denver.
With Denver.
He went to Paris he just got back from Paris a month ago.
So he's a
And then
freelance.
But I had just said,
He's
Yeah.
a freelance.
Yeah.
yeah, but you said
I'd like to find
just-
out
he'll
about
be in Denver.
what?
He'll be conducting in Denver.
Oh, so he's still with the
So he's
Denver?
doing guests. He's coming
Just
to guest
guest
conduct.
conducting, I guess.
But so who is conducting the Denver? It's a lousy orchestra.
I don't know.
Is it? I don't know.
Well, see, all those. But you know, now that I've been in contact with so many musicians, you know, I feel very sad about some of them. I know one guy, a very good composer, but he just hasn't just composed over 100 pieces, and he had recordings, and he had performances. He's also a conductor, but he has to perform his own pieces. The only time, or big performances, I don't know, there's some kind of
Is
a
he
stigma.
good composer?
Yes, he asked me once, I said, am I worse than any of those composers whose works are constantly played, you know, first and last performance? I said, no. And so, and his case was extremely interesting.
Who's this?
I can't tell you. He's now not very young. Well, maybe I will tell you eventually. Well, anyway, he has recordings and so forth. And you see, he had a strange ailment. You know, his index finger went completely numb. You know, he couldn't operate. His hand was perfectly all right. And so he went to a neurologist, just tried it. Look, nothing wrong. And finally he went to a psychoneurologist. And the psychoneurologist said, does it happen all of a sudden? Said, yes. Under what circumstances? Try to remember. Every time I sit down to write the symphony, this finger stops working. She said, oh, stop writing symphonies. He stopped writing symphonies, and he's perfectly all right. Because he explained to me that when he sits down and writes something on paper, he becomes so completely depressed by the absolute futility of it.
Yeah.
I know who it is.
No, you can't.
I do.
And he dedicated his third symphony to me, and he keeps saying, this is your symphony. Can't you do something? So that I can do absolutely nothing. And really, I tried to do something. But I think that he made a mistake. He asked me to write up his case for his own catalog, and he said that the least appreciated. So I published the article, the most unappreciated American composer. And I think it's wrong, because you see,
there's so many.
yes, but
Yeah,
I mean, if you advertise, you say, I am unappreciated. It's just like saying the most unsuccessful girl with men. So well, what's the matter with her? She a dog or something? I mean, there's always, why? I mean, they perform all kinds of junk. Why not him? But do you really? Can you guess?
Carl Husa.
Who?
Carl Husa.
Oh, you're wrong. Absolutely wrong. Carl Husa has all the performances in the world.
He does. Huh?
And then besides, he's a Czech. So now he's being performed in Czechoslovakia. You know, there's one wonderful thing. See, you can be an emigre and so forth, and then you go back to your country and they perform everything.
Yeah.
You see, because there is no such situation that you have to be a friend of Lenny Bernstein or Zubin Mehta or somebody. You see, you just go there. So there's a composer, Karel Jirak, who lived in J-I-R-A-H.
Fascinating names.
It is a game. So I wrote to him about and asked him about his symphonies. And I think that both he and his, I think, ancient wife, and they were so absolutely flabbergasted, you know, that somebody became interested in his music. Because I tried to explain to him that I'm interested because I want to find out how many symphonies. I mean, his fifth symphony was played in Edinburgh and so forth. It was all very confusing. And so he wrote me a complete account, and I think he dedicated something to me, and God only knows what, because that was like, you know, all of a sudden somebody asks about himself. And then finally, although he was a Czech emigre, he went back to Czechoslovakia, I mean, for a visit, so he was paid, and there was a Iraq festival, and what could you do in Chicago? The best he could teach hopeless students there.
Now, who's the man with the symphonies?
Well,
We won't tell.
No, he's in Los Angeles, and
I don't think you.
No, you don't know.
Yes, I bet I do.
You can't.
No,
know.
he's being played a great deal. The one I'm thinking
Is
of.
he
No, this one never sang a single performance except forced by himself in his little college where he teaches.
Oh.
Yeah.
That narrows it down
Yeah.
a little bit.
Very.
Is it that he's a
Probably,
conductor too?
it's yes. You probably don't even know his name.
Maybe a lot of people maybe
De la
don't know he
Vega?
composed.
What?
De La Vega?
Oh, Aurelio de la Vega, that's a different story. Aurelio de la Vega is an aggressive individual, and he's
Who teaches down here? Cran?
and he composes
probably-
crazy.
And
Now
it
he
could be
composes crazy
Krennek
music.
because he's
my
being
God,
played.
oh my goodness, I'm not talking. Krennek, you know that Krennek in Europe, he's
I know it.
so high on. I mean, I don't need know a
He's
person
probably-
whose name may be completely unfamiliar.
But I said probably a lot of people don't know he's a composer.
No, they
But
just
they
don't
don't
know
know.
that he exists. And this is what I try to, you once bigger, see, they usually have a Lee Harvey Oswald complex. They think that there is a conspiracy. You know, like those people say that Oswald was not Oswald, but there were really 10 other guys, you know, who were shooting at Kennedy. I don't know what attitude you take, but I think that if a person buys a gun, shoots, and the gun is still there, and in this case I think that chances are that you did the shooting and not H.L. Hunt or any other bad capitalist. So the trouble with them is he asks me, always with tears in his eyes, he says, why? What is it? Maybe there is a conspiracy. Maybe there's, I said, sure. You see, people just gather together. How are we going to prevent the success of this? And I
this
said,
man
I
whose
have
name we
terrible
don't even
news for
know."
you. Nobody is interested whether you are or are not successful or have not any performances. I said, this is most terrible.
That's
You know,
awful.
it's much worse than anything. You
Is
see.
that they don't care at all?
Yeah.
You see, because you see, but this they will not. There is a composer whom you may know right here in Los Angeles, Ernst Kanitz.
Gans?
Kanitz.
I know him.
Ernst
He used
Kanitz.
to,
Doesn't
he used
mean
to
anything to
teach
you.
at USC.
Yes.
That's-
It doesn't mean the name.
Kanitz, I've heard the name,
Yeah.
but
Yes,
I don't know.
Ernst Kanitz. This bassoon concerto was
Is that
performed
the
in San
person
Francisco.
you are talking about?
No.
No.
Now, Ernst Kanitz is a typical conspiracy man.
Uh-huh, yeah.
Now he asked me something that was very funny. He asked me about my dictionary. He said, who are the members of your Vienna staff? You know, imagining that I have a huge office and so this is, there's Vienna. Cable to Vienna said, get Vienna to telephone, I want to see. So, you know, my staff consists of one California blonde whose spelling is the source of constant admiration on my part because I can't even understand, I mean, certain things, what they can do to simple English words. The final was today when I had a reference to Alice's restaurant in my story in Guthrie, and so she types it. She says, "Oh, there's a mistake." And so, how to spell restaurant? She says, "No, this is correct." "Oh, but you have an A after T." She said, "Why shouldn't I?" It isn't spelled R-E-S-T-U-R-A-E-N-T. She said, "No." I said, "You said, permit, I must sit down because, I mean, I've seen all kinds, but this is something never occurred to me. I mean, you go to a restaurant, you never looked at, well, I don't have to look at the sign, I know where the restaurant is."
No, but it is shocking, the state of, the people who went through high school, college, and they can't spell in
What do
America.
you mean can't spell? They can't read.
Well, that's true.
They can't read. Their vocabulary is about 200 words.
At the studio, we had once a college student, just for filing, mind you, and checking out material, And he didn't know his ABC. I mean, he couldn't file because he didn't know the
Oh, they know ABC, but they don't know
B
L,
and
N, L,
Yeah.
M, N, O, P.
Yeah, that's
So,
right,
oh,
yeah.
this girl, when
Yeah.
she had to arrange something alphabetically,
Yeah.
she copied the alphabet from the dictionary, and then they can't look up things in the dictionary because she types it. Grateful. How do you spell
How do you
grateful?
spell it?
So I said, how? What can you do with a word like grateful? She said, it comes gratitude, the same word. So I said, oh, G-R-A-D-I. Because she says gratitude, you know, she doesn't say gratitude. She says gratitude. So I said, so I said to myself, I swore to myself that I will not start. Well, anyway, to return to Kanitz. So he asks me what who is my staff in Vienna, so I tell him nothing because he's so solemn. I mean, I couldn't tell him that I have no staff in Vienna. So I said, well, this is something very strange about an article in your dictionary about me. He said, I don't want to criticize, oh no, but you know, you don't mention in the articles on Schischke and Spitzmüller that they were my students. So even the names sound funny, Schischke and Spitzmüller. So I said, well, I asked their information, they didn't tell me. So I said, yes, I know, they mentioned Alban Berg, but it's not so. Alban Berg never taught students. I was their teacher. So, you know, in Vienna, in the Universale Edition, there is a clique that is against me, and I'm sure that they influence you. Of course, it's not your fault. So I wanted to say, what do you think in Vienna? They gather together. Now let's
game.
Now, let's omit the fact that he was the teacher of Schischke and Spitzmüller. Schischke and Spitzmüller. Is it not to mention that a very, very sound of name? So when I tell that story, I said, who the hell are Schischke and Spitzmüller? So I did that, but see, here is a guy of now reaching 80 and a very fine musician.
He's a good musician.
Oh, an excellent musician, of course, knows everything and is accountable. And he thinks that if something is omitted in the dictionary, then it's the result of a whole conspiracy coming reaching all the way
Across
from
the ocean.
Vienna to New York, and he doesn't realize that it is just the absence of information, or simply because the composer does mention Alban Berg, so Alban Berg never taught. But do you know that there are 500 pupils of Schönberg in Los Angeles alone?
I wouldn't be surprised.
There would have to be.
But you know what a pupil of Schönberg, the definition of a pupil of
Could have been
Schönberg?
Music 1A or something.
A person who drops in while Schönberg very slowly is trying to explain in his hesitant English, and of course he never taught any 12-tone music or anything like that.
He did not. That's
No,
right,
it's always
I
the most elementary chord. God forbid that you would
That's-
have anything atonal or so. So they drop in and they sit there and they don't understand the thing, and then they are pupils of Schönberg. So
Well,
there are
they
about-
attended his classes.
What?
They attended his classes that you
Well,
say. That's
so I'm a pupil of Prince Philip of England because I went to the commencement exercises and he delivered a very funny speech. So I mean, this is the definition. You know how what the explanation is of all those hundreds of pupils of Liszt, because Liszt had his salon, you know, twice a week. Girls, you know, Americans, French musicians came in and played something, and Liszt would immediately doze off, and then you would wake up when there is fortissimo and said, schön. I said, pupil of Liszt.
Did Konstantin von Sternberg study with Liszt?
That I don't know.
That's what George said in his
Why are you
reference.
interested in Konstantin
Because
von Sternberg?
Antheil's
Because
teacher.
George studied with me.
Yes. Well, that I
I
don't
have
know.
a
Well,
lot of
I
letters.
just wonder how
some
seriously
of
he
them were
studied Liszt.
real students of Liszt, for instance, Alexander Zilotti and others, you know. it all depends what you mean by being a pupil of this. I mean, if you drop in, just say Schönberg,
Well, that I would.
you drop in.
Yeah.
This is not being
Well,
a
you
pupil
see,
of
this was in
anything.
Philadelphia, and it's very possible that he, studied with him when he was young in Europe. I have no idea.
Well, I don't know every damn student of this, but you see, the point is that this whole thing is.
Open to question, at least.
Well, because you would have to define what it means being a student of Liszt or a student of anybody, because it's just like dropping in on some kind of a lecture by Schönberg. But they are not pupils in any sense of Schönberg. Do you know the story about Paderewski's pupil, the only American pupil of Paderewski? Well, this is probably apocryphal, but it's terribly funny. Paderewski, spent the last years of his life near New York, and he lived in Westchester. So he used to pass by a cottage, and there was a sign, Miss Helen Springle, teacher of piano, and she was playing Paderewski's Minuet. She was playing with the F natural instead of F sharp. Ti ra ra ra, ti ra 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 ti. So Paderewski passed by, and he couldn't stand it, so he knocked on the door, and she emerged. So I said, I'm Paderewski. And Paderewski says, may I ask you a favor? And so says, well, anything. Said, will you please play F sharp in my minuet?
Oh,
So 2
no.
weeks later, he passes by, the same cottage, and drum dum ta F sharp, but there's a big plaque. This Helen Springle, teacher of piano, only American pupil of Paderewski. I take no responsibility for its authenticity, but this just sums it up, And so,
One thing I always wanted to ask you, did you ever have a chance to record some of the works that you premiered for a record company?
unfortunately, only ionization and Washington's Birthday, ionization by Varese. That was the first
That was
recording of
EMS.
Varese.
EMS record?
Columbia.
Columbia, this is on the 78s.
Yeah, 78, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
And Washington's Birthday, that was new music record. Incidentally, I have that Washington's Birthday from Malloch, but I can't get ionization. Maybe you have ionization.
You don't have the records that you conducted?
No, I have only one, and there is a record company here that is interested in reissuing my record.
Orion is going to do it?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I'm a musical advisor. They are very
yeah.
anxious. Do you think you can get ionization?
On Columbia?
Yes.
Why can't you write to Goddard Lieberson or something like
Well, you see, I'm
You wanna
afraid to
pirate
ask because then they will turn it over to the legal department, and there will be no
that? That'll be the
end.
end of it.
You see, so
Alright.
I want to do it. I know them all, and Lieberson and everybody. They're all friends,
But
and
they couldn't manage it, so if you
yeah,
just do
so
it,
I
nothing's going to happen.
prefer to do it to first find out and then. Yeah, but unfortunately they are shorter. After all, they are historic records because I was the first to record Ives, and I was the first to record Varese.
Now,
and
there's a new music edition for
New
the
music
eyes.
edition
You going to
for
put that on the other side?
Yes, and
Anything
ionization.
else?
Well, I must find something else. You see, unfortunately, and I have some in New York. I have some recordings of the rehearsals of a lot of American pieces with the Los Angeles Philharmonic, and this could be.
Doing which pieces?
Well, I had.
You mean Ives pieces? But
Ives,
who
yeah.
conducted? You
To
conducted.
realize that I did the first performances of Ives in Europe and all over America when no one would touch. You know what Ives wrote me, and I'm going to quote it. He said, I admire your courage and your musicianship. You ferreted out a nonentity, and you had the courage to perform it, meaning Ives, Charles Ives. I ferreted out a nonentity.
yeah.
It just makes me. I
Yeah.
reread it. I hadn't looked at those letters for years and years.
Oh boy, the impact you must have had.
But, you know, I had an emotional impact. Ferreted out an entity. 1930.
Okay. I found some of his scores here. That there's several boxes of music, and I found like copies of his manuscripts.
Yes,
We-
he was distributing those manuscripts.
But they never-
I could have have all this. Now,
They
because
never-
the Ives letters are invaluable because there aren't any Ives letters in existence. I gave the originals to the Library of Congress.
Well, who's going to publish them? You said you were
Well,
going
in the new edition of my book, I'm publishing letters from Ives and Varese with some deletions because, well, Varese's letters are quite different. Varese wrote me, said, "You will see that I know where I'm going, I know what I will achieve, and you, as my comrade in arms, will march with me into the future." Boy, and the most amazing thing is that all these things came literally true.
Yeah, I sure did.
See, that's a bit, because at that time, I still remember, we were just a company of wild men. Of course, they were a generation older than I was, but they were just, we were living in a fool's paradise, and I remember Varese showed me his annual royalties from British Vision Kerwin, 37 cents in stamps. Now his wife gets something like $4,000 or $5,000 for little things that come through, and of course performing rights. Cowell, who was just absolutely, lived in a shack and,
Yeah.
Did you know Cowell?
Mm-hmm.
And so now his estate is something like $6,000 a year. And Bartók, you know what his estate is?
Well, it's
$80,000 a
pathetic.
year, $80,000.
Yeah. No, I think it just so wicked.
And-
I can't get. I
And
always get
he
so.
had, in one of his last letters,
Yeah.
he said that I've never been in such a desperate situation. I can't find pupils in America.
Yeah.
Can't find
Well, of
pupils.
course, you know Heinsheimer's story about how they tried to have him. That's a marvelous.
Well,
story.
is it true?
And yes, I am.
It's a
positive.
marvelous story.
It's positive that
What was this?
because he was Bartók was a very honest and honorable man, and
Not only that, but very difficult.
and very
But a
difficult
very
and very
difficult man.
proud, and you couldn't help him. He wouldn't take anything, and he was practically starving it, and he had lung. Wasn't he? He died of
Leukemia.
leukemia. I thought it was his lungs,
No.
but anyhow, whatever. And he was quite ill.
He weighed only 78
Yeah, he was
pounds.
just a slight little man. And so, I just want to add here, when we were children, we lived very close to each other, his family and my family. And we used to go to concerts ever since we were little kids. And naturally, everybody went on trolley cars. And we went to Bartók concerts, naturally. I was about 10
Where?
years old.
In
In
Budapest?
Budapest.
Bartók
And
concerts at that time?
oh, he was very famous in Hungary. He really was.
His orchestra pieces?
Much
Or did
more.
Did
No,
he
he
give
played
recitals?
piano. He
Oh, I
gave
don't know.
recitals, and he
You mean
was.
of music, not only his own music?
Yeah, he played his own music and he played other music.
And
but
did he play Beethoven, Mozart, and so forth?
No, mostly Bartók, but he was teaching at the conservatory.
Yeah.
He was, in fact, he was considered really greater than Kodály in some ways. But-
Kodály was much more popular.
But,
Even now,
yeah,
Kodály
yeah.
is more popular.
But anyhow, we went to one of his concerts, and we got on the trolley car at one station, and then 2 stations further, who gets on the trolley car dressed for the concert with
Bartók.
details, Bartók and his wife. And he even to his own concert he went on it.
Yes,
trolley.
but it may be
But-
at that time there were no
Well, there were,
automobiles.
oh yes, there were
were.
cabs, not automobiles, but there were.
I mean,
Horse-drawn
horse
cabs.
carriages, yes.
Yeah, but anyhow.
That was
so
about 1910?
a little later.
Yes, 1910.
But a little later, a couple of years later. And so, anyhow, Hans, everybody wanted to help him, and particularly Hans was very devoted to him. So they figured out a good deal, and that was where the records on on his income. They made it out like he was going to. He made much more than he really did, so that he would accept that.
That was
this story.
yes, a little Hungarian company. You see, it was a company that
Made some
belonged to
record.
to his friend, and
Yeah.
and he played Microcosmos for them.
Mhm.
See, that was in 1942 or 43 when he came to this country, and so
They
and
falsified
then
the
they,
records as if
they
they-
falsified
Yeah,
the
they-
quantity because sold let's say
They
200
sold
records,
yeah.
and he would have received $15 or something, and so that Hungarian first falsified records and arranged so that he could get a few $100s.
Yeah.
And then Columbia recorded made another record. So after 6 months, there was whatever it was, $37, and they sent him a check for $37. And then he called up Heinzheimer, and he said he wanted to sue the Columbia Recording Company because he said if that small Hungarian company could sell hundreds of dollars of his records, so it's obvious that Columbia was swindling.
Oh no.
What happened?
He died.
Yeah, he died. Poor guy.
Oh.
He died very soon.
Somebody would have had to tell him the truth to stop him. That would.
No, but he wouldn't take
But
anything.
he was always, he was always very belligerent. There was a time 30 years ago, 35 years ago now, when Bartók played his first piano concerto and I conducted the orchestra in Paris. I had a big program. Very
it's
proud of it.
wonderful,
And I'll
yeah.
never forget that rehearsal. He stopped in the second movement, the percussion. So there was this orchestra, not much of a orchestra, but still an orchestra. He stopped everything. He went to the percussion player, proceeded to tell him how to push that suspended cymbal from below and not on the rim. And that guy said, "Whoa!" The French was said, what?
Yeah.
He couldn't understand what this Hungarian was talking about. I mean, so, whoa!
How did he want him to play? He wanted a single stroke?
From below.
Yeah. It makes a
You
difference.
see, like this. Well, now we know, but I mean, it says from below, see. So the guy said, bam, bang, bam, wham, he
With
gets
rigging
in
and-
rhythm, but then so said, no, en bas. So the guy said, well, like this. No, pianissimo. So Bartók takes that. In the meantime, every minute of rehearsal costs something like $7.50. And incidentally, all those concerts, who paid for all
No,
my
who did?
European concerts? I'll give you one guess. Paid for everything, for my trip, for my concert, gave me extra money and so forth. Charles Ives.
No.
He financed my entire career.
Is it generally known?
No.
That's phenomenal. I wondered what he did with he had so much money, and I wondered.
No, he didn't.
But he did.
No.
It seemed like he did. I mean,
No,
from all you read
relatively speaking, among composers, he supported new music entirely. He paid the bills for all of my concerts. When I prepared for publication his score, 3 Places in New England, he paid every bill which I arranged for publication with Byrd. And I edited it. I arranged those 2 parts. I have a voluminous correspondence with him, attended to every detail. And he paid the bill for that. And he insisted that I should get something for editing it. And so that time I needed money really very badly. And he would always write me about my records, that it's unfair that I should be. He would always say, Mrs. Ives feels very unhappy about your coming to New York and rehearsing and doing all this for nothing. It's unfair, so I hope you will not refuse. There's some token of appreciation, so $100 check.
But he was Insurance man?
Yes, he was.
Just business.
And it was a very good insurance.
But wasn't it true he was a millionaire?
No.
You read
Not
that everywhere.
I never heard that. I heard that.
I happen to
I've
know
read it.
because
Yeah.
you see, in 1932 he could not afford. He wanted me to come to Italy to conduct there, and so he spent a few months in Taormina, and so he wrote very funny letters from Taormina with his Italian phrases, which were very funny because he could never learn anything, and he said he couldn't learn swear words, in any foreign language. And he said, I understand French perfectly when it's translated. That's his joke. And he said, why don't you, we must bring you over and even fly you over if necessary. That was long before any transatlantic flights. So said even fly over, which was wild, fly, just sort of like a, magic carpet or something like that. And he said, and you come here and play and swappa the wappa non troppo. Is that something? Swap the wop. Swappa the wappa non
That
troppo.
sounds very American, not very Italian.
No, I mean, but this is the way he was. I mean, swappa the wappa.
But he was pretty well to do all this thing.
Oh,
I mean,
yes, he
was,
owned a house, a little house in New York. He owned his place in Danbury, where I stayed so many summers. And but oh heavens, he had a ramshackle place, and he had a sort of beaten down piano. And now I should imagine that he had a nice income, but far from being anything like a millionaire.
When did you first meet Lou Harrison? Was it in conjunction with
who?
Lou Harrison?
Lou Harrison met Ives?
Yeah, were you with Ives when? Lou
No,
Harrison
no,
was-
that was much later.
Later, yeah.
That was much later, and then of course Herman and everybody. You see, but you see,
That was
the
when.
close second was Henry Cowell, myself, Carl Ruckles, John Becker, who's not appreciated, and that's all.
What about Becker's music? You never hear it, you never know.
No, because
What's it like?
it's tough. It's very hard,
Oh, I'm so full.
unprepossessed.
Is it like?
It's available.
It's still
New
Christmas.
music.
Is your Christmas calendar?
Well, I know I'm not supposed to have any, but yes, that was, someday I will write a long article about the heroic days of modern music, because then they were really heroic
Yeah,
days.
yeah, they were. They were.
Antheil and Ives, Ives of course was completely isolated. Those were the heroic days. Now there's no heroism, because no matter what you do, there are no critics who are indignant. Do you know my book, Lexicon of Musical Invective? And so, well, there are no such people who would, no writers who would say this is madness, and like they said
No,
about.
they
You
accept
don't read the San
everything.
Francisco Chronicle.
Yeah, first of all, they can't write, so they will say, this is ridiculous, this preposterous, this is boring. But those people saying the sacred muse is violated, nobody writes like that. They say it's boring, it's pointless. Listen, there isn't anything in the last written by critics in the last 25 years that I could add to the lexicon of musical invective. Nothing. They write, they say, so what? Pointless. John Cage did it all, so what next? Nobody is amused of this one.
And the public doesn't protest either. I mean, I go to this Monday evening because not that I like it, not that it's great or anything, but there are pretty way out pieces there. Everybody sits there, not
way out
really
there,
in one. Well, I mean, way out in the sense that, people go under the piano and pluck the strings or hit the piano. But all of this
Cowell
is,
did it for 50 years ago.
I know. But these people don't know it who go to the concerts.
I know, but when you read what I said about Wallingford Riegger, for instance, which I conducted in Berlin, now this was poetry. They wrote poetry. I'll try to remember what they wrote. I used to know it by heart, but dichotomy. Es klang, als ob eine Herde Ratten langsam zu Tode gepeinigt wurden und dazwischen von Zeit zu Zeit eine sterbende Kuh stöhnte. Now this is beautiful. I'll translate it. It sounded as if a whole pack of rats were being slowly tortured to death.
Oh.
And then from time to time a dying cow moaned.
Oh.
Now this is beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, that's great.
No, he was incensed.
Surrealistic landscape.
Less creative with their
We
criticism.
see the pack of rats being slowly tortured to death. You see, it's not written just, it's, and in German,
Well, the only word I caught was langsam.
langsam zu Tode gepeinigt wurden, was slowly being tortured to death. Pack of rats. Now this is, nobody writes anything like that. First of all, there are very few talented writers left on music, And then they analyze and they say it's
Virgil was the
influenced by
last
the. So, see, that was the time when a piece by Varese was regarded as an insult to humanity almost. One German critic said after the Varese piece, said, "You great Arnold Schönberg, your orchestral variations are manifestations of pure classicism in comparison with this conflagration in the zoo where they were back there, blah, 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 blah." Now this was, or a review in the Allgemeine Musikalische Zeitung, which was a decent publication about Schönberg's variations as late as 1931, saying Schönberg is a madman. He is a lunatic, a sincere musician, but a total lunatic who strayed from the path of music. No one doubts his sincerity. Let him be pensioned off, and let him do whatever he wants, but by all means the government should immediately remove him from his position as teacher of our youth. He will corrupt our youth and so forth. Now this is, my publisher, I would always say, "Oh, I found something good," meaning I found something of this nature. And Schönberg himself was very much impressed by my collection.
Oh, that was good. Yeah, you were just reading from
That's
the other
right,
day. You
yeah.
just reading. Didn't you read me something about ionization?
We read the.
Oh,
We were reading
ionization.
it. Yeah, we were
that's
reading.
the collection
We were reading it the other day in the car.
See, and then now this is inspiration, and there's or what they wrote about Ravel even. Ravel, when Rudolf Ganz played, Rudolf Ganz, who is also 90-something, he's still living. Well, he wrote up a little story, and I got it because he mentioned my book, and he said that my most prized and priceless bedside book is Lexicon of Music Convective, and it reminded him of what a New York critic wrote about Ravel when Ganz, played Ravel in 1906, and he wrote, and so I immediately went to the library, dug up that review, and sure enough, it was terrific. It's a Barque sur l'Océan of Ravel, piano piece from his suite, and he said that this, the critic began, it was in the New York Sun, I think Henderson was the name, it has said this town has been afflicted by Ravel's music before, but never so much as this. At one time, the impression was that the piano was out of tune. Nothing of the sort. Ravel was amusing himself by having something in one key in the treble and in another key in the bass. Horrors, you know. And then he said, and then finally the boat sank without a trace with the entire crew. Unfortunately, the composer was not aboard. Now this is writing. Yes, I know, but I mean this is joy. I mean this is, and all those things.
Well, what was that you were reading the other day by someone about? Was it in the source criticizing?
Morton Feldman, the article Bula Bula.
But it was like in a
talks about
reverse.
the
It was a
Columbia
reverse
Princeton.
situation. He was not.
It's like Antheil's articles in Transatlantic
Yeah.
Review.
He was
Did you see those articles?
Yeah.
Oh man.
I mean, he
but
was.
this is a different story. See, it's from our viewpoint.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But
When-
still, the writing was
when
interesting.
us, yes, but when
You know.
we, damn reactionaries,
way.
it's not interesting because we are not the establishment and we have no power.
Yeah,
you
right,
see?
that's true.
So we are just rebels. But it's when the establishment, but after all, I was nearly lynched here in the city of Los Angeles after those concerts.
Literally.
Well, literally and in all kinds of ways. The papers were full of it.
Did you get
all
any
kinds
bomb
of
threats
protests.
or anything?
No, but I mean, gee
It's a
whiz.
miracle.
In ionization, that was certainly, there was a woman in charge of it. She's dead long ago, a little bit like Dorothy Chandler, who is now in
What
charge
year
of
was
it.
this?
That was 1932 and 1933. Do you realize that at that time there was a revolution in California when Upton Sinclair was a candidate
Oh,
for governor, and
Oh, really?
Hearst killed off this whole campaign. He could have been elected governor on the Democratic ticket.
How did Hearst do that? Through
Well, he put up a Republican, a complete nobody, and poured $1 million into it. And at that
Can
time
be
it was
done.
very simple.
Yeah.
At that time, it
Yeah.
was 1932, and you see that was the socialist type of revolution. You know, when Upton Sinclair established his epic End Poverty in California. Of course, now what they have with the welfare is far beyond Upton Sinclair's dreams, you know, but at that time it was absolutely, you know, Bolshevism to suggest that people should be helped, you know, and so now it's a different situation. And so at that time there was a minor revolution also in the musical circles, and all of a sudden Henry Cowell, of course, was very much behind it, and others, and there was a magazine that was even a sort of an underground magazine. I even forgot the name, and there was a guy writing in it. His name was Jose Rodriguez, but he
Oh
was
yeah, I know who Jose.
you know Jose Rodriguez. Now he was terrific, and
Jose
all of a sudden
Rodriguez.
he and a group of people like absolute rebels took possession of the radio station, of the funds, and I don't know what happened, you know. And so they simply hired me to conduct the Hollywood Bowl. You see, that was it was a very interesting episode. And
I
so
was
because
really
all of a
here
sudden those people, you know, the wild ones, got together, and I was wild. I mean, all it's relative, you must understand. And at that time, I represented a menace to everything, to the Hollywood Bowl, to everything. I was playing God only knows what ionization. I mean, it's difficult for you to imagine now. Now they opened the season with the Farias Arcana, but I still can't comprehend it, because you see, I still remember that they would have lynched, and they nearly did lynch me for playing Ives and Farias and so forth.
Well, all I can say about this is, you know, before the concert in Berkeley, I was very nervous, and I was telling Peter. He said, "Now, Peter, you stick around with me because there might be
Who
a
is Peter?
scandal." My son, our son, George and my
Oh,
son.
I didn't realize that.
And
I thought Peter Bartók.
No, Peter, and so he looked at me like I wasn't really quite right with my mind, and he said, but Mom, it's 40 years later. And you see, to him, this was absolutely unbelievable that anything.
George Antheil.
Why?
It's a
It's
classic.
same
You
thing.
know, I forgot to tell you. Oh, I forgot to tell you that they, in the Library of Congress, they appreciated your program so much. I mean, the listing of George Antheil's works. You see, they have.
Where did I list them?
Well, I mean, that brochure. Didn't you put out a brochure?
Yeah.
You mean what do you
Which
mean the
one?
article in the folio?
With the folio.
Yeah.
Or was it the
Wasn't
program
it
for the
yours?
concert?
Yeah, I'm trying to think if I sent them I didn't send them anything.
No,
You
you-
sent them the
You
folio
sent me 2 copies.
of the folio.
I sent them a folio, and
Or
they
did
were
you send them the program of the concert?
the folio.
You haven't seen the program of the concert. I never sent you one. I don't think
Have you got
sent it.
extra programs to the concert?
Yeah.
And you know, they were overjoyed, particularly the man who is in charge of the George Antheil archive, because he never realized that the violin sonata was a complete composition. They have- What?
Violin concerto, you mean?
What?
Violin sonatas.
Violin sonatas.
Sonatas, yeah, they are complete.
Well, they didn't have it, they just had one movement.
Well, I've had quite
It's
a
a
bit of
funny thing. You
correspondence
got
with 2 different people at the Library of Congress just lately.
Oh, you had correspondence with them?
Yeah, uh-huh.
Well, I sent them that folio, and
Oh, that's...
they were absolutely
Mm-hmm.
They must have-
overjoyed because they said it fills the gap.
You might have seen the poster.
Did you see the poster? No, I don't think you would have. And that's the program.
Well, that I didn't have.
No, well, and this is
See,
your
and that-
lovely
yeah,
corrections.
and that
I'm so,
clarifies the.
I'm so glad.
No. And that La Femme,
Oh, thanks.
110, you still don't know whether that is 100.
Nope, I wrote to Martha Graham, had a very nice letter from her secretary, and it seems that since Louis Horst died, was it his name Horst?
I don't know.
Well, he's
Who?
her accompanist, Martha Graham's
I don't
accompanist.
know.
Oh yeah, well he was her musical arranger. Anyhow, nobody knows of any music that they use,
Oh, that's too
I'll
bad.
say, this
so I don't.
would be very interesting to have.
I should send it to you.
I
You
will
can send it
send
on.
it, send it to
no,
Carl.
keep
You have
one.
extras,
I
don't
got
you?
extra. Keep
She has
it.
a bunch.
He wants to
How
send
many?
one to the Library of Congress.
Well, you can
Well,
send me some more.
I can give you 2.
Well, I don't need to, I'll send one.
Okay.
Keep one for yourself, though. You should have one.
Well, to keep one,
Don't
I
you have a
got
place
some.
where you
I
can
got
file
some.
it?
Oh, yeah.
One more
Okay,
piece
you
of
find
paper.
something.
Just come over to my place.
We want to go over there, yeah. We will.
It's a wild place.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I gave my entire library to the Library of Congress, all my correspondence and everything.
Oh, really? I have to go to Washington to see it. That's still a good place. At least
Yeah.
you know that it's.
You know
Good
what,
man.
what the appraisal was of my library, just correspondence, including 2 letters from
What did
George
they, what did
Antheil?
they appraise?
No. You mean what? For what?
They appraise it by
Appraise.
the.
For
You
what?
gave
For
all-
letters?
his
Yes,
collection,
letters
yeah.
of manuscripts and everything I had.
On whom? Whose manuscripts? Yours?
Oh, a lot.
Mine,
Yeah.
everybody's.
And Ives.
Ives,
Yeah.
all of
Yeah.
Ives, letters and Schönberg's
Uh-huh.
letters. Anton von Weber and Varese, I don't know.
What was it?
It's a fantastic sum of money, and manuscripts, and then of course the books and or things that are not available any place.
Programs and everything.
Programs.
I can't
complete
guess.
Programs.
Do tell.
About 6 cartons, big cartons weighing about 200 pounds. $52,000.
Wow.
When
I
they
bet you
telephoned
can
me,
get
said
them.
that 52,000, I heard 2,000, and I said, can't you make it 5,000? Because I mean, because it's for income tax purposes, not a sale. Of course, you mustn't think that I could sell it for $52,000. No, I couldn't. I mean, but the appraisal,
But
Yeah,
on the other
and
hand,
then you
might
can
the
have-
take it
official
off.
appraisal. So I just couldn't believe it. And you know, I always have this terrible sense of irony, because you see, when those letters were written by all those people,
Yeah,
you know, they
yeah.
were, I mean, they had no meaning, and some letters were really very remarkable. I mean, I had letters from composers who are totally unknown, but there was one non-engineerian in St. Louis whose name was Woodstock, and he composed sort of Debussy-like pieces in 1880, 1890. He died several years ago at the age of 90-something. And see, I really ferreted him out. I mean, I found him and I wrote to him, because I found reference to his works in Busoni's article, in which he said that he heard these pieces and there was some American quality in 1905. And said, perhaps we need this kind of music to give new blood to our old, fatigued, bloodless European music source. God, I've got to find that guy, and I found him. And so I wrote him, and then he sent me his stuff. And it was very interesting. There were certain things that were of interest to me. For instance, I'm hunting for the first composition which ended on a dissonant chord.
Ended.
Ended, I mean, as a consonant, I mean, for instance, C, E, G, A. Debussy did it, but that was a little later, after 1900. You see, in my modern music history, you see, I simply say modern music began when dissonance became emancipated and on the same level with consonances. And that was the only way to judge, is if a piece were to end on a dissonant chord, that's it. You see that examples in Schumann's songs when it's the dominant seventh chord, but then there's the next song when it's resolved. But
yeah.
I could not find, I just simply established a rule. Before 1900, no composer ever ended anything, even movement or a phrase, on the dissonant.
Not Ives even. No.
No, not before 1900.
No, that's right.
So, and then this guy, was a piece written in 1895. So I wrote him a long letter, and I received a reply from him. And that was, he wrote beautifully, incidentally, an old American. And he said, "Dear Mrs. Slonimsky, like a fresh stream on a summer day, like the breath of air when one is like it is, you see, your letter came to me and so forth." I was like, and it was a beautiful thing, you know. I can't quote it because, you see, when I received it, you see, I had this, you know, ambivalent feelings. So first of all, you know, funny, you know, just funny. But on the other hand, that guy had never received any letters since Busoni.
No, I think it's touching, yeah, sure.
I mean, so I can understand it. I mean, I'm as cynical as anyone can be. I don't trust anything, and I think that I've reached the point when even my vanity is gone. I mean, I enjoy things only like the attack of Winthrop Sargent in the New Yorker, claiming that I corrupted the American youth, you know, by publishing this book, and Mexican of musical invectives. It's the Bible of young composers who constantly quoted it. And he said that it's, after all, it's a book of humor, and it's not serious, and so, and that he was shocked when the head of a foundation, a music foundation, told him that this book revolutionizes concept of the relationship between the audience and so forth and so on. And then another guy wrote a feature article in the Chicago Sun-Times entitled "Who's Afraid of Nicolas Slonimsky?" And that is the sort of thing that I love. Because, and then you see, I mean, it was, you know, attacking me. saying that it was also apparently it was a lecture by Fromm, the head of the Fromms, and he gave a lecture to music critics in Chicago, and he said that the preface to my book is compulsory reading for those critics. So one critic said, "Who is afraid of Nicolas Slonimsky?" Boy, did he lay it on, but you see, that I enjoyed. See, when I'm declared to be a corrupting influence of young composers, I could desire nothing better than to be in the company of Socrates, or George Antheil for that matter, or Varese, and every. But see, it's impossible to reconstruct that time. And after all, as Cowell said that I was, in his book, that I was the martyr to the cause, that I could have obtained an orchestra and everything at that time, but I was absolutely blackballed. And my reputation was mud. That guy, the guy who nearly ruined the Hollywood Bowl, boy.
That was before our time, and we didn't live here.
Pay him off. Yes, he engaged for Bolton. Pay him off.
Get out of here.
How long were you the director of the board?
Well, I was, actually the season ended in 6 weeks. But you see, and those women and, all those people and managers could not do anything because, as I say, there was a regular revolution. The young crowd took possession of the radio, which was starting there, of some funds that were available, and even some millionaires, felt that, well, maybe comes the revolution, we better give some of it before they nationalize us,
Don't you think they should do that to the Dorothy Chandler?
Now it's different because, you see, now they do play Varese and Ives. You see,
Yeah, but
They don't play Phil Corner, though.
yeah, no. I don't know, you see, as I said.
How many times has Lamont Young been
I
there?
don't know.
Dorothy Chandler.
I don't know whether I would play Phil Corner. You see,
Well, now, what did that guy say to you, Joe Byrd? Or what
He
did
said to me, "I fear for your image in
Well,
posterity."
I thought when you
So
say,
your image
if
would
you're
be
gonna
tarnished in
if you
posterity.
sit there and say you're not going to put
And so
Lamont
I
and
said, well, I
Dorothy
just have
Chandler.
to get along with the tarnished image as best I can. What can they do? And he said, "You turn again."
You never were a conductor of an orchestra on a permanent basis then?
Not on a permanent basis, but you see, at that time, I conducted everywhere. It was really, there's one thing that those people who heard my concerts in Paris and Berlin years ago, they still remember it. See, and musicians who played in here, the old bassoon players, could never forget. They forgot even the names of conductors who appeared, but they never forgot my concerts because it was a terrific law. And that Jose Rodriguez wrote a wonderful article which was entitled "The Old Mayor Gets a Shot in the Arm." And it's the old mayor being the Los
I'm
Angeles
trying to
Philharmonic.
remember what that magazine was called, because
I can't remember it
in
either.
'36 we opened an art gallery here.
Yes. What
And
was
I
that?
know that he wrote for
He
that
wrote that.
magazine to have a magazine to have a gallery of which showed Miros
Yes.
and Kirikos and
What
Shoni.
was-
It was absolutely
Well,
I
wonderful.
Salvador
can't
Dali.
remember.
You said you
And
had Salvador
Dali.
Dali.
I
But
can't
that
remember.
magazine was the only one who
Yes.
was for us,
Yes,
and
of
they always
course.
had
It wasn't
market-
Sunset Magazine.
No.
No.
No, it was. It sort of went on for about a couple of years, even less. And you see, Ives. I sent that article to Ives. See, old mayor gets a shot in the arm, and Ives said to me that he read this article and said, "Here is a man who writes and says something." And so Ives was so delighted with that article because it was an aggressive, militant article. And of course, he was pro Ives, pro Varese, pro everybody, you know. It is a curious situation. I remember old man Alfred Hertz, who was the father of the Hollywood Bowl. Hertz. He conducted also in San Francisco. So he conducted the Hollywood Bowl, and he came to my rehearsal because he heard that something was going on that was really fantastic. And I was conducting ionization. Of course, those musicians were absolutely lost. They couldn't do 5/16, particularly when one was omitted, you know, 1/6. They were 5 to them was that was 5. You see, like just couldn't. So and then of course they didn't even know how to beat the drum, you know, at various ways. So I went to the drummer and I demonstrated it and did both drums, all this riffing. And he had asked me afterwards, "Are you a professional drummer?" Says that I never handled a drum in my life. But you see, I couldn't do those rhythms. And then, of course, I did all kinds of tricks. In the Ives piece, there were, you know, 4 bars
Second
against
movement,
3 and so forth. And I conducted it this way, you know.
Oh, God.
4 bars against 3. You see, half of the orchestra was playing.
Oh, God.
The sheet 1.
Oh.
And then in Riegger piece there was 5/8 against 2/8, equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1. Corresponding every 10th beat. And see, I found that I could sort of produce induced schizophrenia. I could do anything. See, and then the history of a soldier that I conducted was 2. I decided to conduct 2 beats here, 2 4, and then the 8th notes here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the bass followed this, and the drums, and it was perfect. See, so imagine those people looking at
What's wrong with these arms?
then after that is the traditional strike, you know, that nobody could do it. You see, that was my particular trick, and of course that was
unforgettable.
One critic wrote that my conducting was evangelical because my right hand knew not what my left hand was doing.
I think I have a recording of ionization. It's on one Columbia record with a blue label.
Yes.
One record, one single
One
record. Both
record.
sides, though.
Both sides.
I've got it. I just remembered I had
We
it.
just listened
I bought
to
it
it.
from, remember we bought it
We
when
just
we
listened
got
to it
that
the other
collection?
day.
You bought
No,
it?
no, no.
Where could
We
you
got
get
it, the San Francisco Conservatory of Music sold all their 78s, and I bought all the new music
Say, if
editions.
you could send
I'll send
me
it
a
to you.
tape.
Oh,
Okay.
that
I
group.
could.
That one,
Where
a
is
real
it?
old
Where
one,
is
very
Now,
aggressive.
I don't believe that Columbia, first of all,
Let's
they
not
have
even
friends,
tell
they
Columbia.
would release it.
You know what the reason that
Can you broadcast it? Did you try to broadcast it?
it's on a commercial recording, there's no reason we can't.
It's not a commercial
What
recording.
is?
It is.
Didn't you say it was on Columbia Records?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a commercial. It was a 78 issued in
Yeah.
the 30s.
So?
So it's broadcastable. As long as it was issued commercially, it's okay to
Oh.
broadcast. Now the problem comes in, if you write to them and say we want permission to reissue it on Orion, they'll say no, absolutely not. But if you
Why?
issue it on Orion, then they'll do nothing about it.
What do you mean if I issue?
If you
But
issue
how
it,
can Orion take a chance?
but look at Everest. Everest
Did they
issues
do-
everything. They issued tapes of Cage without telling Cage, that Variations 4. They never got his permission. They reissued everything on that label.
Oh, but they can reissue anything they want?
Not
Well, they're not
really.
supposed to, but
It's
they
just
just
that
do
the-
it.
Do.
The point is
Well, didn't you
that
say
if
your-
you do
Well-
the program notes for the album, they're not going to sing.
Didn't you say that your
Well-
friends were in Columbia? Just do it, and
Yes, but
assume
then
that
they
you
will
did
turn
that.
it to the legal department, and then there's.
After it's
See,
already
just
done,
like
they
this.
might.
Suppose I tell my publishers that that those letters from Ives
Oh.
are
It's true, you
some
can-
kind. You ask a question and then you find that you cannot you cannot broadcast your own speech. You know, you cannot do anything. For instance, didn't you say that you broadcast one of my speeches?
The speech with it was done at UCLA.
UCLA, and
Yeah.
I played. I'm trying to remember which one.
It was the Minute Waltz,
Minute Waltz. I played.
and
40
you also
seconds.
talked about. Oh, it was little anecdotes, one after the
Oh,
other.
did I play any of my own compositions?
Not the part I heard, but I only heard the last 15 minutes of the lecture.
Oh, but you, how did you get this?
But this was
record?
recorded by Carlos Hagen. Do you know Carlos Hagen?
No.
Oh, boy, this is really strange.
Where did this come from? Well, he's from Los Angeles.
Yeah, he works at KPFK.
Oh, well, then I probably know him, but I know Malak.
Malik.
Oh, yeah.
So,
So
But
he
you
probably
see-
picked up this tape out of the library and
oh,
rebroadcast.
Oh, they're
see,
archives.
Malak rebroadcast some of my.
He has lots of things with you, Malik does.
Yes, Malak rebroadcast some. Well, there was one thing which was really funny when I played my own pieces, all kinds of crazy pieces that I
Malik has that?
composed.
Oh, I'd like to have that.
And I can have it done by Malak anytime I wish.
I'd like to have
See,
it
my
at
own
KPFA.
pieces, because you see, I have now they sound camp, but you see, in those times, you know, I composed pieces that were, you know, wild as of then, you know, quite different type of wildness. You see, in New Music, I published a collection of studies which still are valid, you know, studies in black and white with all kinds of tricks, tricks, and then.
Who recorded them? Did you make recordings for
No,
Malik?
well, Orion wants to make an album of my own, of my compositions.
Mhm.
I have very few compositions, and the orchestral compositions are out of the question. But I have one piece that has been played over and over again, and that's how I get my about nearly $1,000 a year from ASCAP, which is extraordinary because I'm completely inactive as a composer.
What's the piece?
Now, the piece is called My Toy Balloon, and it's for orchestra and 100 colored balloons, which are exploded at the end. The only type. It's variations on a Brazilian song, which goes like this: my toy balloon, it falls into the sand. Do not fall in the sand. Better fall into my hand. And I composed a set of variations which uses all kinds of effects. Incidentally, it's the only piece that uses the lowest and the highest notes on the piano, because it's C, C, B flat, A, and so
Or
so the
C and
end
A,
is
yeah.
and then bang. You see, so, and it has all kinds of stuff, and it ends on a march. And this has been done by practically every orchestra in the country, I think in San Francisco too. And so this is the foundation of my ASCAP income, which isn't much. Incidentally, how is George's ASCAP?
It's all right.
Yeah.
After all they it's okay.
It's about, I should say now, well, of course, his pieces that are mostly unperformable, you know, the ballet mécanique is still not performable.
Yeah, well, I
There are
think what always seems
It-
sad
it-
to me
Yes.
that motion pictures, which really
Yes.
he despised doing them, you know, and we never thought too much of it, you know. But after all, that's
Yes, but that was
the
the original with Léger. With
yeah,
Fernand Léger.
yeah. No, but I mean for
Should we say-
ASCAP, it's
Oh,
the income is mostly
From the films.
motion picture cues, and the stations they are playing them I never heard of. It's the most extraordinary
oh,
thing.
so it is played, so his pieces are played.
The
Well,
no,
no,
the
just
Hollywood
the-
films. The
just the
Hollywood
film.
films.
Just the motion pictures, but not his
What?
compositions. that
What, I didn't know that any of, you know, they're still playing, you know, his old.
No. That when you write the motion picture score, you sell it to the studio. You have no more rights to it. However, for ASCAP purposes, you know, whenever they can take 5 bars, 10 bars, whatever
Yes, I know.
a month. as you know all
Yes.
of this. Well,
Well, I see, I've never written for
yeah,
the
well,
film, so.
the point is that ASCAP monitors, you see, and with it, and then so they know from whose music it is. So they take 5 bars or 10 bars from something, a film he did for Bogart or something
Like-
like
Oh,
that.
he
Like
did?
the
I
Pride
didn't
and
know he
Prejudice or
did
something
that
like
Yeah,
that.
film
and
for Bogart.
then they use it for the most incredible kind of programs, titles that I never even heard of, either radio or television or anything
And
like
they
that.
They take the music out of the film, or they take the clip of the film and
No,
use
no,
it?
just the music.
Just the music.
They just reuse the music
Just
over and over
use
for
the
us,
music.
like for
You're
television
kidding.
and things like that. For
Then
television,
they
they just go.
then you ought to collect. Don't you collect them now?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it should be, well, it should be something. Because you know, if just a few bars, if it is a national network, I had only a few bars of of those variations on a Brazilian theme, and I got $150 for just those few bars, and it was played at noon.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
it's
well,
amazing how.
I don't know how they do it, but they
I don't know
they
either. See, I think I get the crumbs, you know. I think they pay. See, Irving Berlin
oh my
makes
God.
so much that they have to distribute in order to
Mhm.
to diminish the corporate. I
spent-
cannot understand what I get and why,
Mhm.
but I'm not complaining.
Well, I spent one afternoon at Ira Gershwin. I
Yeah.
didn't know him, but I have a very dear friend who was married to one of the Shermers at one time. Awfully nice girl, and anyhow, she was a great friend of the Gershwins for a long time. So anyhow, we're sitting there, and I was thinking every minute that you sat there, there was a Gershwin piece played somewhere.
Gershwin,
You know,
Gershwin's
So
estate is
naturally,
fantastic.
the Gershwin estate, it's
Oh,
the same
yes.
deal. They plow it into ASCAP, and they quite a lot of it.
Did you read about the Gershwin Festival in Florida, that
Oh,
absurd
I
thing?
know all about it. I'm on the committee.
What?
It seemed like they had this mammoth, what was it, 2 weeks?
No.
Or 2 days? 6
No, it was
days.
4 days.
It seemed like a lot.
I'm on the committee, and they wanted me to come and everything. You see, I'm a friend of the guy who organized it, David Ewan. You see, I'm one of very few people who think that he's a decent guy. Everybody is against him because he's the only person who writes about music who makes big money out of his writings. So everybody hates him, except me. I think that his books on American musical theater and others are very valuable. So, but you see that they all thumbs down on him because he certainly knows how to place his books, and he wrote that biography of Gershwin, in which he used materials given by Ira Gershwin. So I'm on that committee. See, but I didn't think that I wanted to fly with my.
Well, an unforgettable experience is to hear Gershwin. 2 years ago, I was in Venice, and at a Gershwin festival in Italy, and they were doing at the Teatro Fenice. They did quite a few Gershwin. It was an all Gershwin.
Could they do it decently?
That's why it is unforgettable that that an American conductor, he's a very well-known, oh God, I can't think of his name. He conducts and writes kind of semi-popular music. Anyhow, he's a good conductor.
A movie
Castellano?
conductor?
American? No. He's a New York composer, conductor, and oh God, I can't think of his name. Anyhow, so he was conducting this Gershwin festival, and what he had to do was this little Fenice orchestra, which is used to playing Puccini, Boccherini, and so on, and he was trying to pull them through to do this Gershwin concert, and it was absolutely the most painful thing I've ever heard in my life. Untitled American in Paris, and naturally Rhapsody in Blue. And then this middle-aged Italian guest, been having wine for dinner and everything, and they're sawing away on. And it was just absolutely. And this is one of the most beautiful theaters in the whole world. You know it.
Yes.
I mean, really, there's nothing like it. It's the most exquisite little
Such a pity that the Gershwin had to die at.
Yeah, what's
37.
that something?
No, but,
Morton Gould.
Oh, Morton Gould, yes. Oh, Morton Gould is a very, very
He's
good
a fine musician. He's a wonderful musician.
And incidentally, a very good composer.
Yeah, I know.
His stuff, I mean, apart from
Yeah.
all of his Latin American symphonies and
No, he's
so
very
but-
good. And he really worked. He was, really, it was painful to watch him trying to pull something
Yeah.
out of this
This is in
orchestra.
Venice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a good conductor. He's a good
Mhm.
composer. Of course, his serious pieces, he feels very badly about his serious
No,
work
but he's a serious.
not
correct.
being well. But it's never played. It's always his Latin American symphonette with
No,
his
they
viola
did a-
concerto, his
They did a
symphonies.
ballet of his at the Scala.
I know, but still it's a
Well,
ballet,
I
you know.
forget, yeah.
But his let's see, his concertos and his symphonies, particularly, I mean, the real ones, and they are just as good as anything. So everybody complains. Even Morton Gould complained to me. He said that of course, he is so successful, but still, there's always something. But I learned a great lesson from all those people. Every time one comes to me with a conspiracy idea, people cannot afford to have him. One composer, a very well-known composer, said Ormond didn't play his work first. He promised, but Ormond is so two-faced, and so that was several years ago. I will not name the composer because he is very, very well known, but he has this conspiracy syndrome, and I have to be careful, because if I say that there is no conspiracy, she says, you don't believe me then you think I'm a liar. So I said, no, but I think you suffer the delusion. And so he said to me that that his symphony, one of his symphonies, was to be played by the Philadelphia Orchestra in, I think, Chicago or New York or someplace. So Ormond didn't play it. And he said, Ormond, he came to me and he said he couldn't play it because that was a Sibelius anniversary. And he said he had to play Sibelius symphony. And he said to me, if I play your symphony next to Sibelius, Sibelius will be demolished. There will be nothing left of him. You see, therefore I just said, well,
But it's pathetic.
you see, what can I do? What could I say? After all, it is a Sibelius year. I couldn't say, all right, Rue. And see, here's a perfectly sane individual, no Joe Byrd or Lamont Young. It's a perfectly sane individual, married, children, everything. Very well known to every American musician. There's no question about it. One of the 10 best. I will not.
Yes?
One of the 10 best known, I only need it. So, and he talks like that. You see, and you can't, when he looks at you, see, you can't argue any more than you can't argue with a demonologist or people who believe that Rosemary Brown really wrote down melodies by Beethoven and the Liszt dictated. Do you know this case of Rosemary Brown? Rosemary Brown?
Oh, we read about it, but do you know more about it than what's been written?
Everything I have to know. I met
I
her
bet you went
biography.
into
Now, I think that you already know me enough to realize that I'm not given to intemperate explosions.
Well, who is
I can
Rosemary
take
Brown,
anything.
first
I
of
mean,
all?
it's,
Oh, she's a woman that claims that
Oh, the one who writes
she was all of a sudden she was
composers
revisited.
come and visit her and
yes.
Yeah.
And so the way she told the story, sounded almost indecent, because she said,
Yeah.
when I was a little girl, 12 or 13, I went to a supermarket, and a gray-haired gentleman approached me, and he said, "You are interested in music?" So I said, "Yes, I'm interested in music." "Well, my name is Franz Liszt. I can..." So I said,
For
"Your
the
name is
price?"
Franz Liszt. I think that your name is something else." So approaching little girls in the supermarket. so well, anyway.
Yes, but you're a cynic.
What?
But you're a cynic.
I'm a total cynic. I see, I hear the stories and they all get but maybe there was a gray-haired gentleman, but his name was no Franz Liszt. His name was something entirely different. You know, he
I
was
know
just a
who you
very
mean.
old man. What?
I know whom you mean too.
No, I don't. I mean, there was nobody. I mean, so, and then, so finally, she got all of those composers
Mm-hmm.
come back to, well, anyway, if I may quote what I said, summarizing her accomplishment in my forthcoming book, I said that her performances only prove that that a protracted state of death is fatal to the art of composition, even for once renowned masters of music. This is the way I hear it. Because what happens to their ability to compose, whether they are Beethoven or Debussy, is really pathetic. Apparently, you know, a terrible deterioration after 100 years or so in the grave, you know. So I think it's a long, protracted state of death. Fatally affected.
Now, where was she living? Where is
Well,
she?
she's a British housewife.
Oh,
And so
British.
she started this, but you know, in England, you can sell anything. You can say that you are really Joan of Arc, and they say, "Oh, are you?" Just tell me something about it.
Like that Beatles thing about the dead. One of the Beatles was dead.
Oh, one of
Oh
the
no,
Beatles
I
being
mean, but
dead.
that's something else. I mean, nobody said that he was dead, but he was really hovering somewhere. But you see, they are serious people. Would just take the most obvious charlatan, the most obvious medium. I mean, anything, and. So her album came out, and I finally heard this. I met her biographer, an American who contributes to the Society for Psychic Research.
Yeah, that's I was going to mention.
You see,
that.
and
They really believe
so,
in that.
yes,
very
well, but you
seriously.
see, it's not believe in them, but you see, you can tell them the most fantastic cock and bull story, and automatically the first thing they believe it. They don't even, they are not even interested. See, they say, well, how come she had no musical education, so forth. So I don't listen to those. Now, a Debussy piece. So it starts with the whole tone scale. Then there are 4 bars from Clair de Lune, and at the end there is a cadence of the dominant 7th chord and the tonic, which Debussy never used. So this is Debussy. Then Bach certainly was very funny. You see, they were incidentally all composers used only arpeggios in the bass. Ta 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 ta. Whether they're Chopin or Liszt or anybody. I mean, there was but Bach apparently lost all sense of counterpoint. He couldn't even get ta-ra-ra-ra-ra-ra-ra-ra. He had to go ta-ra-ri-ra-ra-ra-ra-ri in the bass because he didn't calculate how to get to the tonic given. In other words, it's very obvious that she is a gifted, naturally gifted amateur who can imitate the way there was Jack Parr, and he had a pianist whom I hated, Jose somebody. And so they would, did you ever
I remember.
watch
yes.
Jack Parr? Well, he had a pianist who was a genius. He was Jose somebody. So the audience would give them their phone numbers, and he would make them into melodies, you know, so 1, 2, 3, so ta 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 ta, and then the audience would ask, play it in the style of. So I said, play it in the style of George Gershwin. So he plays first the telephone number, ta-ra-ri-ra-ra-ra-ri-ra-ri-ra-ra, ta-re-ra-ri-ra-ra, ta-ra-ra-ra, which has no relation to the previous number or anything. Everybody applauds.
Well,
Jefferson, is he a genius? That I couldn't stand it because when I was a conservatory pupil, I could do 10 times as well, and at least I tried to get the actual tune somehow connected. But he would have the style of Debussy, so he would play whatever number it's given and then play Clair de Lune.
why not?
Or with the wrong notes and additions, all kinds of arpeggios, because Debussy didn't write enough
Just like
notes.
making a generalization.
No, it isn't a generalization. You generalize from something.
Oh, it's not even that. It's more
No,
of a
but if you
direct
say something about the harmful effect of cigarettes on your lungs. Cigarettes are hazardous to your health. When Pythagoras discovered it, it has nothing to do with anything. You see, there's no relation whatsoever. And that woman, obviously, she is talented, gifted. Without any education, the fact that she was not trained is very, very obvious. And the best was possibly, there were a few bars of Schubert which had a typical Schubert progression, modulation. All her modulations were from the tonic to the dominant and back to the tonic. See, and all the accompaniments, as I say, ta 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 ta. But there is a record, the jacket copy quotes from an opinion about her by Sir Donald Tovey, who died in 1940, naturally. But that is nothing.
That's right, I never connected that.
What?
I saw that article too. It was the Phillips Music Herald. They put out a magazine about Phillips.
Yes,
records.
and so here's a guy who. So, and I must say that whoever concocted that review is really a first-class cynic and also a first-class imitator, because Donald Tovey was a damn fool. He was a good musician. He wrote all those books of analysis that makes no sense whatsoever, and
Didn't he write in the encyclopedia too? The musical Groves? Grove.
But Grove, no, he didn't write Fortune
But
for
he
Robert.
what?
He wrote for the Encyclopedia Britannica.
That's right, yeah.
I edited the Encyclopedia Britannica. I mean, I inherited. What he wrote was simply beyond belief. I mean, errors, just plain errors of chronology. I just remember a few things, like, for instance, his saying that, let's say, something, an opera of Mussorgsky, Kovanchin, I recall, that was written on the same subject as Ivan the Terrible of Rimsky-Korsakov. Well, there's 100 years difference between those two subjects. See, and it's just fantastic, and his biographical. See, I wrote new articles practically for all of them.
I have just given that whole set. I found these old music books and I gave them
that's
to
all
my
right.
junior college.
Well, that's perfectly all right.
They learn
I mean, I
everything.
must say that his manual for the Beethoven sonatas are perfectly all
yeah,
right,
I
except
had
that he
that too.
explains everything from his standpoint, and that you can explain anything. You can take the C major scale if you want to prove that it's really F sharp major scale with all kinds of natural signs. Then you, I mean, it's, and this is the way. But he had this very, very English style, and this parody is perfect. And the New York Times reviewed this record, and in a sort of a funny way. I don't remember who wrote it, and then quoted Sir Donald Tovey and said, "Far be it from me to disagree with." So and then parentheses, he states, who gives this opinion, and so forth. He said that besides the this article is written by George Bernard Shaw, so the New York Times article.
That's funny.
Yes, this article is written by George Bernard Shaw. So, and
Say not to interrupt, but why don't we go in there? Or does
Yes.
that
but
interrupt your?
No, let's go sit
those things are, they're just incredible. And I once got into a company, those believers, and it was very interesting. So, well, thank you for your hospitality. And take.
Yeah, oh sure, no, I have, I gathered quite a few.
How long are you staying here?
We'll be here for a couple days. I want to look
Only
through
for-
George's manuscripts.
Yes,
and
only
see
for a
what
couple of
it
days.
is.
We'll be here till Thursday,
Okay.
all week, 4 days,
Well,
3 days.
if you can drop in
Well, I'd like to. What day would be?
any day at all.
They're all bad.
all good for me.
Why don't we call first?
Yes, you can call and come at a moment's notice.
And so, as abruptly as it began, Mr. Slonimsky exited the home of Mrs. George Antheil in Los Angeles just before midnight on December 28, 1970. You have been listening to a 3-part program titled Nicolas Slonimsky Eats Dinner, which was recorded at Mrs. Antheil's home in Los Angeles, California. Participants were Charles and Carol Amirkhanian, Nicolas Slonimsky, and Böske Antheil. This is Charles Amirkhanian for Pacifica Radio in Berkeley, KPFA.